The station where our veterans' voices are heard. MBR Talk.
Hey, thanks for supporting our channel by watching and listening.
Find us on the web at mbradio.us.
Welcome to Veteran Talk with Magic Mike, where what's important to you is important to us. Let's talk. I'm your host, Magic Mike, and today we're diving deep into something close to my heart. How sharing your story and getting behind the mic can be a powerful form of rehabilitation. Whether you're fresh out of service, years into civilian life, or somewhere in between, we've got a space for you here. Because everyone has a story, and broadcasting is how we tell it.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to Veterans Talk with yours truly, DJ Magic Mike. I got a incredible show. I know we had a hiatus for a little while. We were gone, and a lot of things changing, moving, chucking and jiving parts and stuff. A little under the weather. I was a little sick. I'm back. I'm still not 100%, but I'm going to try to give you a great show today. And it's me solo today. I'm absolutely solo. Can you believe that? No, I have some great guests here. I have a guest coming up at the half hour. Devin Fish, United States Army soldier who wrote a book, by the way, is phenomenal. If you ever get a chance to get it, read it. It's pretty awesome. I don't know why my mic seems like it's loud, like really loud. There we go. A little bit down. Anyway, so again, it's pretty cool show today. I'm a little, again, down and out because I'm here by myself. I don't have my cohort. So H-Train's a little sick. Everybody's sick and under the weather and got different things going on. So it's just me today. Hope you guys can bear with it. I wanted to share a video with you guys today that's all over the internet. And I didn't want to be that guy that pulled from other people's internet stories and stuff, but I'm going to share it with you guys real quick. This is pretty powerful. I want you guys to pay attention to this. This is bad. This is really bad. So hold on a minute. I'm going to hit play real quick.
Hey, listen, man, I can't that, man. Don't put your goddamn hands on me. Get off the goddamn road.
So we're running the AFT.
That's right, but hey, you're running the AFT, you're impeding the way. All right? Put one in the mode. Not getting that motherfucker's on first class. You have my goddamn private. I told you to get off the fucking road.
Hey, listen, if you guys have not seen that yet, that video, that is let me pause it right quick. Sorry about that. This is a actual sergeant first class and a lieutenant colonel in the Air Defense Artillery out of Fort Bliss getting into an argument. Give you a little background story. They're doing an AFT or a APFT, as we used to call it, Army Physical Fitness Test, right? Standard test, right? They're giving a test. It's a closed road. So this road is closed for traffic. It's only for PT, certain time. Everything was legit what this sergeant first class was doing. And you have this lieutenant colonel that absolutely goes ballistic on her, cursing her out, stepping to her, unknown male, don't know if he's an NCO or an officer or whatever, kind of taps the lieutenant colonel on his hand and say, like, calm down, you're stepping to a lady type of thing. And he, don't touch me. I mean, he's just, obviously he's either on medication, needs to be on medication, but whatever it is, it's just so inappropriate. And if you're an NCO out there, an officer, I'd love your feedback. You can always email me or call the station. But when I saw this, two things came to my mind. Number one is punish in private, praise in public, right? We were taught that all the time, right? At what point is it okay for you to sit there and yell and show your ass like that in front of all those soldiers? You are the command. You are the hierarchy of that battalion. He's a lieutenant colonel in the ADA. So he's, battalion commander from what I heard. It's the 1-4 something or another battalion that he's in charge of. And I'm just like all over it. Like, why would you? There's no right or reason. There's no reason. Step into a female first and foremost like that, aggressively. She says, he's yelling at her, and she says and identifies and says, Sergeant First Class type. And he says, then F and act like it. And it's just totally unbecoming of an officer. There's so many people out there to say that they're not going to, I don't know the backstory, so I don't want to talk about it. And no, I'm going to talk about it. I don't care what the backstory is. You need to take the higher ground, Lieutenant Colonel. Move out swiftly, deal with it behind closed doors, lock her up at parade rest or attention and just chew her butt and say, you ever make me look bad in front of the troops again like that? I don't know anything but yelling at her in front of the troops. And it's over something so minute and so stupid. She simply said that she was given an APFT or AFT test. He said, get the hell out of the road. I mean, you don't own the road. Come on, man. Like, you're a lieutenant. Now, if that was a post commander, hey, not a problem, sir. Everybody get off the road. Your AFT right now is null and void. We'll do it another day. But that is ridiculous. And anybody who watches my show who doesn't know military lingo, AFT, Army Physical Fitness Training Test, or whatever we used to call it, Army Physical Fitness Test, APFT. Now they call it just AFT. Usually push-ups, sit-ups, and a 2-mile run, right? So the 2-mile run is always the last part of it, right? So it's hard to just say, oh, let's do it tomorrow, guys, because those soldiers are burnt, man. They can't. They're going to have to reschedule it for a while, let those muscles get a little bit, relaxed, if you will, and adjusted, I guess. So it's not something you can just do tomorrow, right? So kudos for the Sergeant First Class. I mean, she kind of stood her ground a little bit. She was I think she was still respectful. At the beginning of the video, it shows her kind of stepping a little bit, like trying to get it, whatever it is. Listen, I don't care. He needed to be the bigger person, always be the bigger person. So I don't know. There's a 15-6 investigation ongoing. Supposedly there is an investigation. I reached out to some PAOs out there. They said they can't comment on it because it is an ongoing investigation. I don't know if that's IG, a 15-6 investigation, or what, but something needs to be done. I mean, that's just, you're talking about, we have enough problems in our world society that right there doesn't look good. I mean, you got the Marines that are commenting on it, the Navy's commenting on it, even the Air Force started commenting on that video. So it was pretty deep. I thought it was crazy. Anyway, if you haven't seen it, it's a lieutenant colonel who yells at a Sergeant First Class, and it escalates and everything. The whole story you can catch it on YouTube or any of those. It's crazy, man. It is absolutely flipping crazy. I'm sorry, but it is. It's just wow. Anyway, another thing, I don't know what the heck's going on here. Add to stage, remove. All right. So the other thing that I wanted to show you guys was there was something else that I wanted to talk about. And everybody knows that I'm really passionate about the Major Richard Star Act. And what is a Major Richard Star Act? I'll just give a recap real quick. It is they call it the combat tax. It's offset dollar for dollar for anybody that was injured in the military during combat operations or in wartime that was medically retired. So if you lost both your legs, one of your arms, or whatever it was, TBI, traumatic brain injury, and you were medically retired from the Army, military, with less than 20 years, you can only get one. You can either get your VA disability or your retirement. 90%, 99.9% of the time, everybody takes a VA disability because it's more money, right? So let's just say, we're just hypothetically, I have a good friend of mine that retired as an E4 in the United States Army, right? He was injured pretty bad, roadside bomb, missing both his legs. He was an E4. And matter of fact, he was a corporal in the Marine Corps, lost both of his legs. And he gets $4,220 for his wife and 3 kids from the VA, tax-free. His retirement from the Marine Corps is about $2,300. That is taxed dollar for dollar for whatever the VA gives him. So obviously, if the VA gives him 4,000 something, that whole retirement is wiped out. He only gets the 4,000. Now, that same individual, had he done 20 years in the Marine Corps and went to the VA and said, oh, my arm's messed up, my legs are hurting, or whatever be it, he's 100%. He would then get both his retirement and his VA disability. So it doesn't make sense. So the Major Richard Star Act is also known as the combat tax on veterans, is a dollar for dollar offset with the VA. What this Major Richard Star Act would do would reestablish that. So in the news a couple weeks ago, the Secretary of Defense was in a huge hearing. And he said, I don't know why this is not. Let me see if I can add this here. I wanted to show you guys this. The VA, he said, hey, I don't know what I'm doing here now. Yeah, there we go. I got it now. I got it. I'm working. I got it. All right. So this is what he said. I'm gonna let you guys listen to this real quick. This is what he said. This is a hearing.
We've had an estimate from Mr. Hirsch yesterday that the cost to date in dollars for this war has been $25 billion.
So he's talking about the war in Iraq.
I believe is well below the
the war in Iraq,
based on everything that I've heard, everything available to us in various kinds of settings.
So what he's talking about is this. By the way, this is a a representative, Senator Blumenthal, who is kind of like the spearhead for the Major Richard Starr Act, to allow veterans who were medically discharged due to combat-related injuries. They would be allowed to get their retirement from the military as well as their VA benefit, like every other person that serves 20 years plus, right? So if you serve 20 years in the military and you have VA disability, you can get both. But if you are made to retire early from the military because of your combat injury, you cannot get both. So understand that. If you're a spouse of or a widow of a military personnel, you can get both the retirement and the disability or the VA offset. They call it DIC is what it's called. The combat veteran cannot. Why? We have no idea why, but this is what's going on. So Senator Blumenthal, who spearheaded this whole entire Major Richard Stark Act and got everybody on board in it, and just to let you know, it's unanimous. There's one senator out of Wisconsin that blocked it just recently. He's the one who blocked it. He was like, nah, I think it costs too much money. We'll get into that and we'll dive into that in just a second. So this is what he says. He's talking about the war in Iran, and he's directly talking to Secretary of Defense or War, Pete Hegseth.
And I'm going to ask for a more accurate assessment. But we also know that about 400 service members have been wounded as a result of this war. When they retire, when they come home, their retirement pay will be docked dollar for dollar for every disability benefit dollar they receive. Secretary Hegseth, I'd like your
listen. He pushes back a little bit. Watch
the Major Richard Starr Act that will eliminate this wounded warrior tax. I'm sure you're familiar with it. Tens of thousands of servicemen and women now are reduced in their retirement pay literally for every dollar of disability benefits they receive.
Well, I appreciate your focus on this issue, and I will tell you you mentioned roughly 400 that have been injured. Thankfully, over 90% have returned to duty. But that doesn't mean they wouldn't have a residual challenge, and we're tracking that at point of injury.
So he just admitted, he said, look, they return to duty, but that doesn't mean sometime in the near future when they get out of the military that they won't have a VA disability. So he's acknowledging it. A little pushback there, but I like it.
To ensure that is noted, even though they're returned to duty.
But what I'd like is your commitment that you will support the Major Richard Starr.
As I have said in the past to other organizations, we support the Richard Starr Act.
Wow.
Thank you.
Did y'all hear that? That is the Secretary of Defense, Secretary of War, Pete Hegseth, who said, as we said to many organizations before, we support the Major Richard Starr Act. We support it. Listen, this is the first time ever. And by the way, Senator Blumenthal is a Democrat. So those of you who are like, the Republicans, they rule, or the Democrats, they know what they're doing. It doesn't matter. This bill is the first bill to ever have bipartisan support, both from the Democrat and Republican across the board, 300 plus co-sponsors of the bill. But we can't get it to the House to be voted on. We can't get it to the actual, I want to say the House, but to the chamber to get voted on, right? Because that's the last hurdle. Everybody unanimously, there was one person when they voted on it to move it forward. One person said, well, it's too much money. He's gone. It doesn't matter. Everybody else voted. They put it forward. The next step is it has to be voted on to go to a house, to the House, to be voted on at the House, at the actual, like when you see the president speaking and Mike Johnson, all them, to there. It's got to go there, to Capitol Rotunda there. They got to vote on it, right? And then from there, it goes to the president. President signs it, and then it becomes law, right? That's the way bills work. It's complicated, but trust me, I've done the research. It's crazy, right? So understanding the Major Richard Starr Act, right? This is the key right here, is understanding the Major Richard Starr Act. So how are veterans penalized? You can read up all this. I'm not going to go over it. I'm not going to go crazy on it or anything like that. But this is what it says, basically, what the Wounded Warrior Program says it is. You can go in there. How are veterans being penalized? Veterans forced to medically retire, et cetera, et cetera. That picture right there happens to be my buddy Ryan. He and I were at Walter Reed together. He's a double amputee, right arm, left leg. Great guy, captain, United States Army. He had to retire. He was a captain in the United States Army and had to retire. He was forced to retire because of his injuries. So he only gets $4,000 and change. Now, his retirement as a captain is probably $3,000 or $4,000, somewhere around there, right? Now, we do get CRSC which is combat related specialty compensation, which is kind of an offset. It's like $300 or $400, $600, I think is the max I've seen is 1,000, I think. And you get that, it's an offset, and that is tax free, but it's not your retirement, right? You get your medical, your dental, you get everything from the retirement except for your pay. It's a dollar for dollar offset unless you did in 20 years. So that's the Major Richard Starr Act in kind of in a nutshell, if you will. Okay. So this is how much the Major Richard Starr Act would cost us. Just to let you guys know, the Major Richard Starr Act would cost anywhere from $1.2 to $1.7 billion for 10 years. Okay. Remember that number, $1.2 to $1.7 billion a year for 10 years. That's like $70 billion, right? I want you guys to watch this. This is pretty powerful. Ready?
For example, for fiscal year 2025, federal agencies reported a total of $186 billion in improper payments. However,
I want you guys to hear this again real quick.
2025, federal in improper payments and publish estimates on those programs.
Here you go. Listen.
For example, for fiscal year 2025, federal agencies reported a total of $186 billion in improper payments. However, GAO has...
I want y'all to hear that. Okay. This is a Senate Oversight Committee on Fraud, Waste, and Abuse Accountability. In 2025, the United States government improperly paid out, either due to error, fraud, or whatever be it. They never recouped it. This is not where they recouped it and they got it back. But the federal government spent and lost $186 billion in improper payments. Just to give you an idea, they lost $512 billion in 2025 in fraud that they can't figure out, don't know how to get it back or whatever be it. This is fraud payments to Minnesota, whatever be it. This is not political. This is factual, right? So $186 billion in overpayments and accidental payments. But we're complaining about taking care of veterans for 1.2 to 1.7 billion for 10 years. This isn't for the rest of our lives. It's only for 10 years, just for 10 years till they get caught up. The other argument that this one senator from Wisconsin had was, well, we're already paying trillions of dollars, or it's going to be trillions of dollars when we're done because we're paying all these Vietnam veterans that are suffering from Agent Orange. I'm sorry. Did you say Vietnam veterans? Okay, Vietnam veterans are between 70, 80 years old. They're in that frame there, right? And you're complaining about paying them while you're sitting there ringing up a tab for $7,000 at a bar on taxpayer money for lobbying. You're complaining about that. Veterans who gave you the opportunity to sit where you're at in that chair. I'm just, listen, if you're not on board with Major Richard Starr Act, I don't know what's wrong with you. It's difficult. Seriously, it is difficult. It is totally difficult to sit here and listen to these people and try to figure out what in the world these people are doing. It is crazy that anybody would actually sit there and cry about that. You know, what about the guys and girls who went to Iraq, etc., still suffering? Absolutely. So that was the other complaint that this senator had. The senator said, well, we're already paying for the Agent Orange, and we just signed in the PACT Act, which was for toxins for the burn pits and stuff like that. And by the way, if you don't know what that is, man, do the research on that, the stuff that they burn and what it comes up into the air and you breathe in and everything like that. I mean, if that happened here in America, the EPA and everybody else would be, people would be in jail for that. But yet we did it overseas during wartime, and we're like, yeah, well, I guess we could pay them and keep them kind of quiet and stuff like that. And the payments aren't great. I mean, it's not like they're paying billions of dollars either for that. But this senator literally cried about the Major Richard Starr Act and how much it's going to cost, because he equated the burn pits and Agent Orange as being, well, we gave them that. What more could they possibly want? Are you serious right now? Are you serious? Listen, I got in trouble one time when I made this comment, and I'll probably get in trouble for making it again. But, you know, you sit there and you see the SPCA, right? In the eyes of an angel. No, none of us can hear that song anymore because it means something totally different now because we would think of a dog or whatever, right? Or a cat. People will donate thousands upon thousands upon millions in trusts and everything and leave them for the SPCA. But we're in a society where we're complaining about people who go to war. Oh, but you signed up. It's a volunteer military. You're absolutely right. You're absolutely right. And nobody's asking for anything. But President Lincoln said it. He said to bore the nation's scars of the widows and orphans that are left behind, right? So think about that for a second. You're asking somebody to go and fight for the Constitution, asking somebody to go and do something for Iran. Whether you're against the war in Iran or with it, whatever be it, they can't have a nuclear weapon, right? Should have been done back in the 1970s. We got it. But I'm saying you need to support the veterans. Don't just talk, not lip service, right? It's an election year. God knows it's an election year for a lot of senators. The Democrats are trying to win the House, et cetera, et cetera. Absolutely right. They sit there and they say, oh, we support the troops. We love our veterans. Oh, I love my veterans. You see my little American flag. I love our veterans. I love our veterans. Do you really love your veterans? We're coming up on Memorial Day. How many of those veterans sacrificed their lives? I'm not talking about the veterans that are still alive. I'm talking about Memorial Day, the ones that are not here anymore, right? Those that were on active duty and died on active duty. Those are the ones that are, I don't understand how do you sit there and give lip service about loving veterans or anything like that? And then one person out of 300 plus senators, congressmen, all these people that came on and co-sponsored and sponsored this Major Richard Starr Act, every one of them said yes, except for one. And that was a senator from Wisconsin. Before that, it was dead in the water from a Republican senator from Mississippi, I believe it was. Either Mississippi or Louisiana. And he was a retired Air Force. I'm pretty sure he's double dipping. He called it double dipping is what his thing was. But anyways, it was horrible. It's I think they need to jump on board. Great news, though, is the Secretary of Defense or Secretary of War, Pete Hegseth, said, yes, I support it. That's huge, right? How do we wrap it in? I mean, there's different ways to wrap the bill in. We can wrap it in the NATA. There's all kinds of different ways. I just hope that they pass it and start BSing. Stop taxing these guys who go to combat, like Jed Morgan, like Ryan, Captain Ryan, like all these other people who went to war, and due to no fault of theirs, they had to retire early. Jed told me he wanted to be the next Marine Corps commandant. Ryan said he wanted to be a freaking colonel when he retired, maybe even higher. Maybe he would have been a 1-star or 2-star general. Who knows? But his career is cut short because he's a double amputee and they retired him out of the military. That's not his fault. If they go to combat, injured in combat, and are forced to retire, they should get both their pays, their retirement and the VA disability, period. Because if they did 20 years, they'd get them both. Anyways, that's me beating that dead horse. We're going to take a real quick break. We'll be right back. And I have a very special guest, Devin Fish, United States Army, wrote a book, phenomenal book. Read it, buy it, check it out. Everybody knows that mental health is important for me. It's something I talk about all the time. A lot of us veterans sit here and I hate saying struggle with it, but we deal with it, right? And I always look for a good book. I always look for good things, right? Tools that will help me. Somebody tells me meditation. I do meditation. It works. It might not work, whatever be it. I will tell you this book, I started reading some of it. It is powerful. It is deep. My trigger warning is you'll fall in love with the guy who wrote the book because he's just a real dude. He's not fake. He's not phony. He's not some, a screenplay author or whatever, but he's the real deal. You're going to love it. Good guy to talk to. When I come back from the break, we're going to speak with him and talk about his book. We'll be right back. It's not going to be that long. I promise you. I won't put you all on like a 10-minute break like old boy always does, but we'll put you on some kind of a little small break. I might not even take a break. Let me look and see what I got my comments. They might say take a break. Yeah, we're gonna take a real quick break. Ready? Watch this.
The interview of the week is brought to you by Jersey Mike's, a sub above.
Man, my sinuses are.
The interview of the week is brought to you by Jersey.
All right, there we go. And Devin, what's going on, Devin? How you doing? Devin Fish, ladies and gentlemen.
I am doing great today. Thanks for having me.
Good. Can you hear me and see me okay?
Yep, I can hear you.
Yes, I feel like I'm on the VA whenever I do my my therapy call. He goes, "Can you see me, hear me okay? Can we get a radio check?" Dude, just start talking, bro. Seriously. Devin, welcome to the show, man.
Yeah.
I always try to lighten it up a little bit. So, Devin, tell us, I'm going to ask you some questions and stuff like that about your book and try to get the audience to really understand it. First of all, how did you, just tell us a little bit about yourself. I don't want to sit here and try to do your bio. Tell us a little bit about yourself.
Yeah, I'll try to summarize it a little bit quicker. Normally, sometimes that story can take like 40 plus minutes, depending on what direction we go into. But I'll try to summarize chapter 1 real quick for everyone. So I am Devin Fish. I just became a veteran of 10 years of the Army. I was born in Rockford, Illinois. I lived there for the first 18 years of my life. I did grow up in stability. So before the age of 18, I moved over 16 times in that city. To give you an idea of that city specifically, it is rated 5 out of 100 on the crime index, meaning 95% in the United States is safer than Rockford, Illinois. So that is where I grew up for my entire childhood. Living conditions weren't always great. So sometimes we didn't have AC, sometimes we didn't have water, sometimes we didn't have a bathroom. I've lived with my mother, father, 2 different aunts. I've lived with grandparents. I've lived with friends of friends. I've also lived in like apartments. I've lived in houses. I lived in motels and everything, from stuff from like that. So I've seen a little bit of everything. And then when it comes to my parents, they didn't always do the best as well. So they kind of struggle with like drug addiction. So by like the age of 18, I saw my father in the hospital, covered in blood. And then I came home to like an apartment that was completely destroyed. I joined the Army right after that. And then while I was heading to my first unit at Fort Hood, Texas as a cavalry scout, got a phone call from my mother, nothing extreme. She just wanted to see how I was doing. It was about 2 weeks from my birthday. And then the next day I get a Red Cross message saying she had a bad reaction to a medication, fried her brain, then she died on the spot. Fast forward a year after that, I ended up getting myself in a lot of trouble with like depression and like self-hatred. And that throughout that year, I got blackmailed about seven different times. Submitted myself to the hospital, and then that's kind of where the story starts taking a turn. Some of the stuff I learned at the hospital, and that's where the title of the book comes from, answering the hard questions when I had to ask myself, do I want to die or do I want to live?
Those are powerful questions right there. Say that one more time.
Do I want to die or do I want to live? I kind of ask it to the audience a couple different times in the book because it's a really important question, because I kind of realized that I never asked myself why I wanted to live in the past. And then when I was kind of presented with that scenario, I didn't have a reason to live. And so it's very hard for me not to end my life during that time. So it's kind of a question that I think more people need to start asking themselves.
Yeah, I absolutely agree with you. I couldn't agree with you more. It's kind of like when you go to church and stuff and they ask you, are you going to heaven or hell? Those are deep questions, man. You can't answer. Do you want to live or do you want to die? That's something that I don't think that's anything that we've really even ask ourselves. We get depressed or something like that. We just think about ending the pain or stopping the pain, right? And it's a permanent solution for a temporary problem that's it's going to be temporary. So in your book, in your bio and stuff like that, I had your little book up there and stuff like that. It's called Answering the Hard Questions by Devin Fish. Again, it's a phenomenal book. You go into details about, once you ask yourself the question, how did you answer it? I mean, there's no definitive answer. You don't just sit there and say, I want to live. It's a struggle, right? So what was your, I guess I want to say your mind, but what was yourself telling you?
So this is something that when I never sat down and actually wrote these questions to myself, but it's kind of like a self-reflection of that time. And I'm like, okay, what did I go through at this time? What do I remember from it? And then how do I make that real for the audience? So that's really what I was trying to do with that book, is like bringing them in that experience. And the book is very, I've got this from every reviewer. They're like, it's brutally honest, and at some point it will make you very uncomfortable. Because I get very explicit, like in details and stuff like that, because I'm like, I have to make it real for the audience so that they know this is real, and that no one would make some of these scenarios up. And then so what I was kind of going through at that moment when I was considering taking my life was, the only thing that got me through it was I played it day by day, because there was part of me that wanted to still take my life. I just needed a reason to do it. And so I kind of had to, so I played it day by day. And then eventually I submitted myself. I'm like, hey, I need help. I can't do this on my own anymore.
So once you submit it, so listen, I got it. I talk about Pandora's box, opening it, and that's exactly what you're doing with your book. Is you're opening Pandora's box and letting somebody look in there, right? And once you ask yourself that, and once you sought out help, which I think for me personally was the hardest thing, was seeking help. I mean, listen, I'm not trying to put my business out there. I see a psychotherapist, a therapist, and a peer counselor, and a regular psychiatrist, right? On the regular. Matter of fact, tomorrow I have an appointment. So I see them on the regular. And that was the hardest thing for me, was to admit that, hey, I needed to talk to somebody. I needed to try to get out. The second hardest thing was being brutally honest with those people, right? It's almost like a drug addict that, they say, do you do any recreational drugs? And you're like, no. The doctor knows dang good and well he just took your blood that you do cocaine, pop, smack, and speedballs or whatever beer, right? So it's like it's hard to be brutally honest. And once you are brutally honest, it's almost like right? Okay, I'm not being judged now, because that's not what they're doing. When you decided to go look for help, right? Because I think that's the stereotype, is that we're all going to be judged. Was that difficult for you to reach out for help? Was it something you said, look, I can't do this on my own? And you just jumped headfirst into the cold water?
Yeah, absolutely. To quote myself, I think the quote was, it took me like 2 months to find 30 seconds of courage, which was like, I'm thinking about ending my life. I can't remember exactly what chapter is in. I know it's in one of the memoir portions. I think it was about silence and being alone and isolating yourself, and it was talking about the lies we tell ourselves when like no one's looking around. And the lie I constantly told myself was, I was in a platoon of about 30 people. When I submitted myself to the hospital, not a single person expected for me to be the one that was suicidal and having things going on in my life. The thing I admitted in the book, though, is like, even when I submitted myself to the hospital, I never told anyone what was actually going on. I'm just like, I hate my job. I don't want to be here anymore. I just want out of the Army, stuff like that. So the stuff about the blackmail, the father and the mother, no one knew about that even after I got out of the hospital. The only time someone actually found out was like when I created this book. So I continued to not tell people the truth. And it was when I wrote
to suppress that, to hide that. Yeah. And everybody has a story, and I'll share a tad bit of my story. Was that, after my childhood trauma and everything like that, I felt like I always had to lie to be something I wasn't, because my childhood identity was stolen from me. So I didn't know who I was, right? I joined the Army to find out where I was at, and so on and so forth. And it just didn't work, but whatever. So make a long story short, it's just, we lie to ourselves, and we, sometimes it's almost like I said, like a drug addict got to come clean and say, okay, here it is. Now, when you wrote the book, back up just a little bit. What made you decide to just write the book on your story? I mean, that's difficult in itself.
Yeah. So I kind of knew I had a story in 2022, because that's when that was the turning point of my life, and where I think a lot of things turned around. And when I kind of like came to the conclusion, I'm like, okay, I'm happy again. Because I came from a state of like, I absolutely hate me and everything about this world. And then I completely turned that around by creating a 1 to 3 year goal. And I didn't think about writing the book, but I kind of knew at that point, is like, when I finished that goal, I'm like, okay, maybe I have a story to tell. Fast forward to late 2024, I went on to go, I was getting ready to present it to people. So I put this in a PowerPoint for my peers. My peers liked it. And then I'm like, submitted it for training, for like Army training for like suicide awareness, stuff like that. It ended up getting rejected for, I can't remember the exact reason. It's just not what they're looking for it to be taught right away. And I was fine with that. And then I got notified I was going on a deployment to Kuwait. And then I kind of made my mind up on that deployment. I'm like, I want to tell my story. So I wrote it down in a book. I ended up redoing that PowerPoint, and I based it on chapter 1 and made it a suicide awareness PowerPoint. I ended up presenting that to like 200 or 300 people because they liked the idea. And then when I got back from that deployment, I ended up presenting it to the original people who actually rejected the concept. So we did a complete 360.
That's pretty cool. So was it difficult for you writing the book?
So the hardest part was like, because I'm like in a mentally good spot right now, I had to essentially drag myself back into hell. I had to get really explicit with like some of the details. And so that part, writing the story was easy. Writing some of like the subsections, that took a long time. But the memoir portion, where I actually talk about my life, that only actually took a week, and that's like about 100 pages.
Do you feel like that was therapeutic, like getting that out, kind of like?
Yeah. So it ended up completely changing my life when I actually wrote this book, because in chapter 3, going to war with God is one of the sections of what it's called, and that's where the cover comes from, of the angel and the demon. That's where I start, contemplating my faith, and by the end of it, I actually turned back to faith.
Yeah, listen, I made this comment the other day, Devin. I said, besides church, there's two places that you will find more Christians than anywhere, and that's in prison and a foxhole. That's it. You know what I mean? Hardly anybody's an atheist when they're sitting in a foxhole and rounds are coming in, right? And in prison, everybody's turned into something, right? Faith. But we're going to take a real quick 2-minute break. When I come back, we have Devin Fish, an amazing human being, Army veteran, wrote this amazing book. It's a book into reality is what it is. It's a book that allows you to open up a journey into what a lot of us veterans deal with and a lot of people deal with. And how do you cope with it? It's just, I feel like it's another tool. We come back, we'll talk more with Devin Fish.
She's from Alabama, I caught her red-handed, drinking whiskey on Saturday night. I can't imagine I'm overreacting, she's losing her mind. I met her mama and told her about her problems, how it's happened now a couple of times. And girl, I'm sorry, I'll be gone by the morning, cause you ain't the marrying type. Well, she got away with words and I know it hurts, so Lord, it's protect your pride. And girl, that's the way it works, and we ain't the first ones tricked by the morning light. So we came up, make love, then we take some, stay up, wake up all the neighbors. Yeah, I swore I was done with her, but she's got away with words. Yeah, she's got away with words, and I swore I was done with her, but she's got away with words. I wasn't honest, if I'm being honest, I fed her a couple of lies. And now she's calling me, going on and on about another guy. So I take the bottle off the counter and I pour one. She's the only reason that I always gotta pour up. And ain't it funny that I bought the bottle for us? I'm the only one who's drinking now, baby. Well, she got away with words and I know it hurts. So bored, it's protect your pride. And girl, that's the way it works, and we ain't the first ones tricked by the morning light. So we came up, make love, then we take some, stay up, wake up all the neighbors. Yeah, I swore I was done with her, but she's got away with words. Yeah, she's got away with words, and I swore I was done with her, but she's got away with words. Yeah, I swore I was done with her, but she's got away with words.
And we're back at Veterans Talk with yours truly, DJ Magic Mike. And we have Devin Fish, Army veteran, wrote a book that I found fascinating. If you're just joining us, Answering the Hard Question. It's a book and reflection into childhood trauma, his career in the military, and coming back to his, I hope I can say this right, coming back to his faith and his beliefs and stuff. Before the break, I had asked him a question about writing the book and stuff like that. Here's a question that I had that was kind of just off the cuff, and I want to throw it out there because I like asking this question because I got asked it. If you could go back in time in a time capsule to your 15-year-old Devin Fish and tell him one thing, what would that be?
So I don't want to spoil it, but I actually did write this in the book, and I actually thought about this for a very long time. And the answer is that I said I would tell him nothing, and I would make him go through all again, so that he has to learn everything.
That's powerful. Yeah, I just got asked that same question. That's why I threw it out there. I got asked that same question Monday with one of my peer counselors and said, what would you do different? And I said, nothing. I would love the same. I would fall hard again. the 6-year journey that I was on was a 6-year journey of fun and fantastic love and roller coaster and everything else. And it taught me how to love, who to love, why to love. But more importantly, it taught me that I need to love myself at the end. And that was it, because I was at a point, where I didn't love myself. And that's one thing that she said. She goes, "Oh, I know you love yourself, because if you didn't, you'd be at the end of a rope right now." I said, "That's fair. That's fair." Now, did you ever feel like giving up when you're writing a book? Because the reason I'm asking these questions, these are my personal questions now, because I started writing my book 5 years ago, 6 years ago, 15 years ago, 10 years ago. And I've got a whole entire journal that I kept when I was in Iraq, from when Isaac Nieves was killed to Captain Khan, Connor, all my soldiers, all my friends and stuff that I talked to. And everybody who knew me in the military knows I was a friendly guy. I always talked to people and joked and stuff like that, and got to know a lot of people. So for me, it was really difficult, because I was, "Hey, do you know so-and-so?" "Yeah." "What? Oh, he got killed." "Oh my God." So I knew all these people. And for me, writing my book, even everybody talking about use Chat GPT and all that good stuff, it's great tool. But for me, writing the book has been extremely difficult, because I'll go down a rabbit hole and all of a sudden memories will pop up, and I'm like, "Okay, let's take a break." And then I'll take a break and I'll go back to writing. And I go, "Okay, I want to talk about this now." And it's like, no, we have to finish off on this where you left it. But I don't want to. I want to go into this now. Oh, and then I've got another bright idea. What about this? And this, I think people need to hear this part of my life, and or people need to hear about this, with this healed, and how I kept from, eating the barrel of this, whatever be it. And for me, it's really hard. Did you ever feel like giving up though?
I knew by the time I wrote a book, I just didn't know how I was going to do it. I didn't know, like, if I was going to do it like on a YouTube channel. I didn't know if I was going to do it like on a radio or like a podcast. I just knew I had to do the story. But actually, it was about 10 pages into the book, and I'm like, I'm going to write this book. I'm not going to stop. And then I'm also going to commit to leaving my Army career to force myself to write the book. So for me, it was like, okay, if I get out of my Army career and I haven't written this book, like, I have nothing to rely on. So that really helped me get it done. And then on top of that, I was in Kuwait. There's nothing in Kuwait. Like, you could walk the entire post probably like within 10 minutes, and all it is just desert and like some places to eat and like the occasional gym. So there was absolutely nothing to do out there, and there's no distractions. Now, how you were saying it though, your journals, to where you had like very fragmented ideas, that's actually how the book was actually written. So I didn't write it from like start to beginning. I would write a piece at a time. I would number that, and then later on, I combine it to make the book. So what you're doing is actually how, I wrote this book.
So how did you find a publisher? Because that's, for me, that's the hardest thing. It's like, you got this publisher, and it's like, oh, $7,900, and you got this publisher that, no, you don't pay that much. You pay us to proofread it, and we'll get it together, and we'll do this and this. And the other one says, well, so it's all about something different. What would be the? I mean, what is that?
Yeah, so there's a couple different things I did. So I can't remember. I think the initial one I started with was like Reedsy, to where you could kind of like submit it to like professional publishers. And when I got on that website, I found like one of the previous like editors for David Goggins, one of David Goggins' book, and I mentioned him a couple times as like inspiration for wanting to write the book. And then from there, it was edited, and I was going to look at submitting it to a traditional publishing company. Ended up not working out, and I'm glad I didn't wait on them, because it took them like 5 months to get back with me. So by the time I finished this manuscript, it was already complete. But what ended up happening after that, I looked into self-publishing. I looked at what David Goggins did again, and it actually went through a self-publishing company called Scribe Media. And I like what they said, because I keep all the rights, but I pretty much pay them to do the distribution, the editing, the cover work, and everything like that. So I ended up going with that, because it was pretty much, I did everything, and then they just helped make the physical book itself.
So David Goggins, he's phenomenal. He's, I have another friend of mine that never served in the military, but he's written quite a few things and stuff like that. We grew up from kindergarten stuff. He's met David Goggins' phone number, and reaches out to him. He's a great motivator, personal guy. So I can only imagine. I'm gonna get that information from you, by the way. So I have Here are my off the cuff questions that I didn't write you that I was going to ask you, but coffee or tea while writing?
Oh, coffee or tea while writing. Okay, I didn't hear that part. So when I was doing this for half the book, I was still into bodybuilding at the time. So for me, it was probably Ghost energy drink, actually. Yeah.
Hey, listen, I'll try anything. Morning or late night writing?
Ooh, so my schedule was a little hectic just because I was in deployment. So I had like some people like who would call me in the morning, some people at night.
Gotcha.
I would say I was more of a night person though. Just because I would try to be around for the people during the day, and then I would kind of do my own thing. I would go to like gym. I would try to get at least a page in a day. So mostly night.
Yeah, that's I found out that's it. All right, this is a pretty cool question because back in 2005, I take that back. It was 2007. 2007, I stood outside of New York. I was visiting New York for the first time, wanted to see Ellis Island and everything. I get a phone call, and I had met this lady who was a producer, and she had a friend that was a producer in Hollywood, MGM. And him and 3 other people conferenced me in on this phone call, and they wanted to know my story about being homeless, coming home from Iraq, losing both my parents while I was in Iraq, so on and so forth. So we spent about 2.5, 3 hours, and I was literally outside of a Starbucks in the freezing rain with a little umbrella, cold. This Miami boy was freezing. And later on, it became a book and then a movie. It was called Thank You for Your Service. So they're wearing the First Infantry patch, et cetera, et cetera. It's pretty powerful. But if your book became a movie, who would you have play the lead?
Ooh, I don't watch too many movies anymore, so that would be a hard decision. He would have to look young. I still look young. I'm like 28, but most people still think I look 18.
Yeah, you do look young.
The weird part about them, if they were to make a movie, it would be like a pretty graphic movie, and I would have to contemplate even making the movie. I don't have an answer for that.
I would like to see. I'd like to see Matt Damon.
Matt Damon.
Yeah, but he looks so old today, though.
Yeah,
they would have to make him look young, but like a younger, I'm talking about like a Good Will Hunting Matt Damon. That'd be pretty cool.
Yeah, that one would be pretty cool. Or someone that can get kind of like into their emotions, or who has like maybe good like facial expressions, something like that, to where it's like, because most of the story would also have to be kind of like in my head as well, and not just actually lived experience. Because on the outside, I was a quiet person, like, and that's why no one knew I was like suicidal or had any issues going on, because I would play it cool like when everyone's around. But when no one was around, I'm like completely in my head, or I'm like, I was a gamer back then, so I would rage on gaming all the time. So,
what's your favorite game? I got to ask.
So lately I haven't been doing too much gaming. It's been Slay the Spire 2. It's like a card game. And then I've been playing Riftbound, which is like the League of Legends card game. So that's kind of some of the small stuff. Yeah. I like
those are smart people games. I play stupid games like Fortnite and DMZ. Somebody wrote in the comments, they said, why such a hard question on the spot? Yeah, I had to. It was just something I was like, God, what's next? What's next for Devin? What's your next move? Are you already working on another book or thinking of another book? Not necessarily a sequel, but something, that you want to do in the future. And what are you doing now? I mean, you wrote the book's great. Again, if you haven't seen the book or read the book, Answering the Hard Question is by far a book that I personally would order multiple copies of. And when I go and talk in my motivational speaking about suicide prevention and mental health, I would definitely hand that book out. 100% hand it out free of charge. I'd pay for every book, hand it out, and let them read it, because it's a powerful and impactful book. But what's next? Are you already working on another book, or do you think that's it? Or
No. So I'm still writing. So just as I wrote in the book, it is true, I left my military career, and it was a very good job. It was like $85,000 a year. I was like a staff sergeant with 10 years. So if I did another 10 years, I was retired for the rest of my life. It could have been a great living, but I wanted to stay fully committed to the book and show my faith in the book, and give people that same faith back. But what I'm doing now, I'm still writing. I'm about 80 pages into the next book, which I just came up with the title about 2 weeks ago, which is answering the call answering the call, a continuation of faith and questioning, where I'm kind of like looking at the Bible, I'm looking at Christianity, and I'm trying to apply it to my life now. But you also still get some of that memoir to where I'm continuing my story of, because I was pretty anti-religious and atheist my entire life. So coming to faith is something new, and I was quite rebellious of like faith in general. So it's I have the extremes of like coming back to religion as well. So it's a completely new story. And so I've pretty much recorded the entire experience of me coming back and some of the things that I was like convicted on, some of the things that I had to work through, like some of the graphic stuff, like this next book, even in the chapter 2, chapter 4 of this book is where it gets graphic, but I think chapter 2 in this book is more graphic than some of the stuff I put in this first book.
Let me tell you this. I can't wait for the second book. Listen, if you guys are looking, and I got a couple questions in here that people are asking me, where can they find the book at? Where can they find the book? I put this up there. I just pulled this off the internet. Where can they get the book? I know it's on Amazon, right?
Yeah, so it is on Amazon. It's on Barnes and Noble online. It's on Kindle. It's on Kodobo. So just about anywhere. The only thing we haven't done yet is a audiobook, just to make sure there's like a market for it, because it's like costs like an additional like $7,000 to get that made. But it's also on like ebook. It's on paperback. It's also on hardcover. So pretty much all the online shops have it. I don't know if it's in any stores yet. I've had like a couple professional reviewers do it, stuff like that.
Podcast style. I know we're a radio show, so we're on Roku television, so they get to see us, they get to interact with us, and you know, we're on YouTube. A lot of my shows are pre-recorded, they're on YouTube, stuff like that. Like this one would be pre-recorded, put on YouTube, and so on and so forth. So what is something that you, I'm trying to think of the right wording for this, moving forward in your next book, what is something that you hope to accomplish with your next book? I mean, is it just simply just writing the book and then moving on, or do you're hoping to establish, not a following, that's wrong wording, but to get the word out there to, because there's a lot of people out there that need to hear that. Like me, I read your book and I was like, God, this is a point in my life where I needed to hear this book. I needed to read it. I needed to check it out. So what is something that, that is your hopefulness with this?
So I did come into it with, I don't like, and even you said it to gain like followers or like become famous or something like that. I would love for that to be the case. However, it's not for the reason people think it is. It's just so that they can hear the story, not to like make me popular in itself, but to like, so they can actually ask themselves the questions and not just, for me to be the encouragement, but actually, help themselves find encouragement, help themselves find faith, hope, and stuff like that. But I guess what I would do, like, I don't mind speaking, and I don't mind, like, I haven't done like any YouTube, or I've just been starting this podcast into where I think this is my 11th or 12th one right now, just to get the story out there more and kind of like spreading the word, and then kind of seeing where people want to go with it. Like, do you want to hear more stories? Do you want to see what I'm working on now? What does an audience want, and then go from there.
That's pretty powerful. We just got somebody said that they'd share your book on a couple other different podcasts, mentioned it, and somebody else said they would share it on their podcast as well. I mean, this is what it's about. It's like, I always said this. It's take church, take a movie. Two things, right? You go to a church and you go, oh, it's a great church, got to go, pastor's great, da da da. People go, right? More. You go to the movie theater, you see a great movie, you go, oh man, it's a great movie. You tell your friend goes sees it with 3 or 4 people. Next, it's a blockbuster. Is that right? I don't know. It's a hit, theater. Golly, I'm all over the map today. So, but that's how you get your traction, right? And then of course, if somebody sees a bad movie, they're like, I don't want to see that movie. Literally everybody I mentioned the book to, or had somebody either read a little bit of it or just the introduction to the book, has all said the same thing. And I'll read you one that somebody wrote me, dear friend of mine, who's written 5 mental health books, by the way. This is an Air Force retired E6 who's written 5 mental health books. Dear friend of mine, Patrick Sims, he said, started reading just a little bit of this that you sent me. This is amazing. This is good stuff. Tell him I said, thank you so much for the this is what happens when you thank you so much for the read. Looking forward to reading the whole book, Mike. please, while you're talking to him, let him know that he has me in his corner. What a great individual. So this guy, Patrick Simmons, and I, we did across the country. We went to different military installations. We talked about suicide prevention and suicide awareness. He's based out of Fort Eustis area there, Newport, and the Air Force base out there. I forget the name of it. Anyways, it's right next to Nassau, because I accidentally went to Nassau side. And they're like, you can't get on this base. I'm like, ah. Anyway, but he's written The Cure to Mental Illness, which is it's a book on, your journey of healing, right? It's not a cure book, but it's, journey. He has a kid, and his kid is adorable, and his kid's written already 4 or 5 books. For goodness sake, it's like 5 or 6 years old or whatever, and it's pretty good. But that's his specialty. So for him to say that and give you kudos and accolades, I think is pretty cool. So, I mean, keep doing what you're doing, man. You're doing God's work. And I'll share this with you. I would love to have you. I go to a huge church, and I'd love to have you at that church sometime and talk about your book and talk about you and stuff. And that's the thing. People need to hear these stories, right? Need to know that they're not alone. Right, because you always hear the great stories. I grew up a pastor's kid, and I knew I was gonna pastor a church, and I knew it was difficult. But now I got the Compact Center, and I rake in $285 million in book sales and stuff. You know what I mean? Love you, Joel Osteen. No dig on you, buddy. Love you, buddy. I love your work. I listen to you on Sirius, but not everybody's that way. Right. A lot of us are damaged and broken. It doesn't mean we're not fixable. It doesn't mean that we're not walking with our faith or whatever be it. So I think it's really important that people do read this book and understand where you come from and what has helped you and what has healed or started the process of healing for you. And I think that's really important. Today, my special guest has been Devin Fish, a U.S. Army veteran, wrote the book, Answering the Hard Question, a journey into his trials and tribulations. I'll say it like that. I don't want to give the book away, but I will tell you that this book by far is probably one of the most powerful books I've read. It really is. Go get it. It's on Amazon. You can find it. Answering the Hard Question by Devin Fish, a United States Army veteran who absolutely knows what he's doing. I can't wait for your next book, Devin. This is your time. Anything you want to say, you can give a shout out, say whatever you want. Getting a bunch of shout outs right now for you in the chats. They're saying, thank you, Devin. Appreciate you.
Yeah, I appreciate you having me on and all the kind comments. I even see one of them that says they love the cover. I actually love the cover too. They actually gave me like 5 choices for the cover, and that's the one that I chose because I'm like, oh, that's the most risky cover. Let's go for it. And that's kind of what I wanted them to do. I wanted them to get the feeling of the actual book on the cover, because when you turn around the book as well, the first thing you see is like, do you want to die? So you know exactly what you're getting once you actually look at the book itself. And chapter 1 is just that. What I would say is, the sub cover of the book is let it be the end of the chapter, not the end of the book. What that really means is like one day someone's going to read your story and what do you want to leave them with? For me, I want to leave people with hope. And the other thing I will say is in truth, you will find redemption. So that's actually what brought me back to faith. And that is the premise of this entire book.
That is powerful. Devin, I can't thank you enough for being on the show. It means the world to me. We're back. Bigger and better than ever. Devin, you're welcome on my show anytime when your next book comes out. You better let me know. I want you back on the show. We'll talk about that as well. Again, Major Richard Star Act, contact your senator. Tell them to push that. It's not a joke. Seriously, tell them to push it. Stop kidding around. Bipartisan support. We talked about that. We talked about did you see the video at the beginning? I don't know if you caught that. The lieutenant colonel, have you seen the lieutenant colonel that got in a fight with the sergeant first class over an AFT test?
I have not, but it wouldn't surprise me.
It is horrible. It's like all over the internet. They video. I mean, you got to listen. Everybody's got a cell phone, man. Stop with it, man. They're going to videotape you. Act accordingly. We're all going to be judged one day. Act accordingly. My favorite thing, I'll leave you all with this, was in The Dearly Departed, when he says she died. He said, "How's your mother doing?" She died. He said, "We all are headed that way. Act accordingly." Right? So act accordingly. Be kind. Be kind to each other. Take care of each other. We'll see you next time. Remember, on Military Broadcast Radio, the radio station gives our veterans a voice. We're here for you, not for us. Giving our veterans a voice on Veterans Talk. What's important to you is important to us. Thank you again. My special guest, Devin Fish, Army veteran, wrote the book, amazing book, Answering the Hard Question. And we'll talk to you guys again next week. Same time, same bat channel.
Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for tuning in to Military Broadcast Radio. As we wrap up today's show, we want to remind you that the podcast of today's episode will be available right after we go off the air. So if you missed any part of the show or want to listen again, be sure to check it out. And remember, we're here to support and honor our veterans. Your stories and experiences matter, and we are committed to giving you a platform to share them. That's right. We're here to give our veterans a voice. So don't forget to catch the podcast and stay connected with us. Giving our veterans a voice.